Penuel the Black Pen. I've written 13 books, 3 of them being fictional works, Thanda Ilanga, Nomathemba and the Darkness, and bits and pieces of Inkunzi. I've written 3 business books, The Rise and Fall of the NSC, Fuck Fear, and Passive Income. And then I've written 5 diary entries, so to speak. 2 of the articles I'm going to read today are going to be from those diary entries. Also wrote a book on my belief system, penuelism principles, and I've written 1 book on parenting called Hey Man, Fuck These Kids. These 2 articles I'm reading about some of my thoughts around Nelson Mandela, and I'm going to keep it short, and I hope this will give you something to think about. My love-hate relationship with Mandela. Mandela gave us the political power to change things we don't like in South Africa. Since he came into office in 1994 to date, we could vote to change the constitution. Parliament can vote to transfer land next week. The ANC can set a policy for all JSE listed companies to transfer 50% of ownership to black people. The issue wasn't the compromise, but what we've done or not done with it. I've gotten really pissed at Mandela and his crew, but at which point do we take the blame? Remember that we didn't need Mandela's approval to go to war. We can even go to war tomorrow. We agreed to accept Mandela's compromise. We didn't march against it. We didn't assassinate him. It's just convenient to blame him. Hell, I've been blaming him since my consciousness came alive in university. But I doubt many of us would have spent as much time in jail as he did, nor sacrificed time with our families. If you really think you can do better than Mandela, go for it. Start a civil war, kill all white people, take back the country, build a black utopia. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. Because you can't even spend your money in black businesses. You can't even work for black companies. You're too scared to post your truth on social media because the white man might fire you and never hire you. Might grow and change. And I've never respected Mandela as I do today, or as much as I do today. I might change again and hate him again, but as it stands, the old timer did the best he could. Him and his crew, Bigo and Sobukwe, could have done better, but they were killed, and we did nothing in retaliation. Chris Hani was killed, and we did nothing in retaliation. We just love pointing fingers and blaming others because we're too punk pussy to look in the mirror. Who are you going to vote for? Who do you work for? Who teaches your children? Who do you buy from? If you think you can do better than Mandela, go for it. He didn't ask for permission, so you don't need to either. I don't remember the date of when I wrote that piece. Second piece, Robert Mugabe and Nelson Mandela. This one was written on the 6th of September, 2019. Rest in peace, Robert Mugabe. With the passing of Mugabe, I sit in anticipation for the celebrations from the West and white people. Mugabe really tried his best and was failed by his own people and other captured African nations who failed to work with Zimbabwe to make it a functional black nation. Instead, those black nations, like South Africa, folded their arms out of fear of upsetting their white handlers. Mugabe chose to keep a stern face, then fold and let whites win in his nation. But the blacks failed him. Every time we blame Mandela, we must always look in the mirror. Each and every one of us has the power to buy black, to vote black, to invest in black, but we don't. We're all as much sellouts as Nelson. At least he tried to fight and paid his dues. Most of us are too punk to even spend 1 decade in jail. We'd never leave our families and our children to go and fight for a nation. He sold out, but he tried harder than most of us. And he gave us the platform to support each other and build the utopia we seek. The man spent 3 decades in prison. He helped set up Umkhonto weSizwe. He was fighting and willing to die for black liberation. Even though they negotiated sneakily with a tired old man, he still managed to get us free houses, free healthcare, free schooling, social grants, roads, sanitation, black economic empowerment, etc. When people whine about Mandela, it means they wanted him to suffer in jail, get out, kill white people, magically get the world to like us, give every black man land, get every black man a successful business with full funding and good workers and access to a global market. We want him to do it all, and we're not even willing to do the bare minimum with all the platforms and opportunities he and other struggle heroes afforded us. There's truly something wrong with each and every one of us. We as black people constantly want too much and refuse to do our bit to advance the agenda. I used to hate Mandela, but the truth is, we should actually hate ourselves. We keep white business in power. We endorse white power through our patronage. We vote for leaders who we know are in bed with white people. We send our kids to schools in order to emulate white people. We beg whites for jobs instead of begging blacks. Each and every one of us. We're scared of turning South Africa into a Zimbabwe. Judge Mandela. Yes, he sold out. But don't forget to look in the mirror. The biggest problem in your life and the lives of other black people is you. As you can tell, I think I wrote these articles when I was still deep into consciousness, deep into black consciousness. And I think it was around the time when I'd set up the Buy Black movement. I think the website is still up, www.buyblack.org.za. Where in my head I said, look, I want to pick up the fight for black people, and the 2 best ways to fight for the empowerment and upliftment of black people is to convince black people to buy from other black people and to work for other black people. If black people in South Africa and on the African continent stop working for white-owned, Indian-owned, Chinese-owned businesses, those businesses will not have labor and skills. They'll collapse. If black people on the African continent stop buying from white-owned, Chinese-owned, Indian-owned businesses, those businesses will collapse and black businesses will rise. That was my thinking, of course, at the time. I embarked on the journey, and I've documented before how I was deeply disappointed by the groups I'd set up. A lot of good black people, a lot of passionate black people who were contributing 100 Rand a month towards the fight. We made nice t-shirts for Buy Black. We hosted a few get-togethers. Of course, we set up the website. I drafted a booklet for the Buy Black movement, and we had a vision and a goal. My goal was, I'm going to build the black economy, build a black economy to mimic the Jewish nation, to mimic the Muslim nation, at least in South Africa. To create something like halal, something like kosher, so that people only eat pro-black foods, so that people only buy from pro-black businesses. Very tough ask. Better men than me have tried and failed. Marcus Garvey, Bantu Bigo, Mangaliso Sobukwe, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. You've obviously got people like Dr. Umar Johnson today, Dr. Claude Anderson, other great black minds. Along with that journey, a lot of good white people, Indian, Chinese people came to me, and I also got to reflect on my past. And I realized there are so many bad black people, politics, business, in the church, in the tribal leadership, that don't want black people to win and that are agents for white imperialism and supremacy. And they are going to be the people that will destroy you, that will make sure that you're killed, that will make sure that you don't succeed. ANC government today, I believe, when you look at it, does not act in the interests of the black masses. According to them and the people that fund and handle them, they believe the solution to black people is to give them grants. Not to empower them with education and information and skills and tools so that black people on the African continent can manufacture their own cell phones, can build their own ships, build their own planes, build their own containers, build their own infrastructure so that they can generate energy, so that they can power innovation and create rocket ships and create media industries and their own Hollywoods. They're not about that. They're about enriching themselves, getting a few shares in traditionally white colonial businesses and being good friends and agents for the West, for Europe, for America, and for the East today, parts of China, Japan, etc. I'm no longer pro-black. I gave up. I sold out like Nelson. I decided that it is in the best interest of the people in my community and the people of South Africa and the black masses in particular, for me to decide to no longer push a black agenda, but to try and find the good people of South Africa that can collaborate and come together in unity to serve the people of South Africa. Because the pro-black agenda ensures that bad black people get to abuse and manipulate good black people, and they become agents of bad white people to make sure that the masses of black South Africans and other Africans remain oppressed in this country. There are many good black, white, Chinese, Indian, other race groups in this country. Coloreds, shout out to colored people. And for me, part of my fight is to get those people to stop grouping themselves according to race, because it is bad black people, bad white people, and bad people from other groups that thrive on racial division so that they can get good people to work for their agendas in the guise of uplifting a race when that's not the case. Find good people, work with them. Nelson Mandela found good people, some of them beneficiaries of apartheid, some of them beneficiaries of British colonialism, some of them extremely wealthy, some of them were beneficiaries of exploitation and oppression and murder. But they saw Nelson, they understood his vision, and they said, look, let's come together. And in some ways, they funded the ANC and what we have today. But Nelson became friends with these people, and they helped him build hospitals and schools and empower, sadly, the wrong black people. What we have in 2022 is a country where Nelson Mandela is no longer alive. Robert Mugabe is no longer alive. Steve Biko is no longer alive. Chris Hani is no longer alive. Winnie Madikizela is no longer alive. We are alive, and we have an ability to change this country, regardless of race. Be careful of the race agenda. Be careful of the gender agenda, where they're trying to divide us based on our private parts. Find good people. Get them to unite. Make sure they are willing to put in hard work. Make sure they're willing to fight for the goodness of building up this country, this continent, so that we can uplift as many good people as possible. And the masses, in their ignorance, in their destructive nature, can continue supporting their politicians, their kings, their pastors, and other business leaders that are using them, exploiting them, keeping them poor, while the rest of us move forward and we build a better world for ourselves and our children. Penuel the Black Pen. Cheers.